Hey there, it's Christian from 7 Gaming Network, and I'm here with a review for Tiny Epic Tactics. Now, it appears you can fit quite a lot into a very small box because everything that you see here comes in this very small boxed game, and there's more as well. There's some other stuff that I've got over there. So there's a lot squeezed into a very small box, but is there actually much game here? Because that, of course, is what we're really interested in. So what I'm going to do in this review is talk through the components, what we find in it, what the quality is like, and then I'll dig into some of the gameplay. I'm not going to go through the rules. You can find that in other videos. And then I'll just give a review of what the game is like, whether I think it's any good, and whether it's going to be a game that your gaming group might enjoy. So, first and foremost, these components. I have to say, I am just shocked. This is the first Tiny Epic game I've ever encountered, and I really am gobsmacked at how much value they have packed into a game that costs so very little, relatively speaking. The design of it, first and foremost. I've never seen a game that sets up in this great kind of 3D fashion, and it really does feel like you're playing across some sort of Nintendo level. I mean, it's almost a small computer game-esque. If you've played Into the Breach or any games like that, it's got that sort of feel to the battlefield. It's extraordinary and really cool. And all of this fits into the box, of course, that it comes with, but it's almost like a Tetris. It's all beautifully done. You have to check out their unboxing videos out there. Have a look at some of those to see, because it's a work of art. So just putting the game together, there's a lot of care and effort gone into it. The component quality itself is really spot on. The main thing I was a bit concerned about is the sort of silk battlefield mat, and it's fine. It's got a kind of stitched edging, which sometimes can make it go a little bit funky at the edges, but you stick a book on it and it smooths it out, and it takes a minute. So, and the boxes themselves are extraordinarily well made. I mean, I've had this for a couple of weeks. I've been playing a lot with it because it's a great little game, and I've been really using it a lot. And there's nothing. I can't see scuffs. I can't see anything looking like it's going to tear or break or anything like that. This is really very, very well made, considering these are essentially heavy card components. The little miniatures, I should say meeples, are really nice. They're light, they're much lighter than I thought they were going to be, but they're nicely printed. I've got the Kickstarter version. That might be different potentially in normal retail versions, not sure. In this version we also get the little lanterns expansion, which is the sort of deluxe expansion thing that goes with it, which is a great little addition to the game. But again, just really nice little set of wooden piece components. And then the cards. I mean, take a look at some of the cards here. The artwork on these is really very nice. You can see it's a very particular style. It's very, I guess you'd say a sort of anime cartoonish. And that's definitely the feel of this game. It's a light-hearted feel to it, and that is it's got that Nintendo edge, as I said, to it, and that's definitely reflected in the artwork of, well, all aspects of it. Although this is a game that is essentially a small combat game, you could almost call it a mini war game. The theme of it all is very light, very fluffy, a bit Super Bomberman-esque if you're old school like I am. Okay, so let's have a look then at well, at the gameplay, because the components are top notch. When it comes to the gameplay, this really, I think, is another time when I've been completely gobsmacked at how well designed, how tight, and how excellent a game for the amount of money that we're paying here can actually be. You set up with 4 characters on either team. If you are playing one of the 4 game modes that this tiny little game brings to the table, and the main way you're going to play it is the competitive format, where you'll have 2 to 4 players. 2 to 4 players taking on 4 characters, and you'll each have a mage, a beast, a warrior, a fighter sort of character, and a rogue. And the balance across these different characters seems to be very, very good. There's 32 in the Kickstarter version, so you've got a lot of variety. There's 8 in each of the classes, and they feel very different. The variety of skills on display here in a game that's relatively, well, really quite simple. It is a simple rule set, but the variety that they've managed to fit into all the different characters and their abilities is surprising. For a simple game system, they've managed to build a lot of differentiation in between these different characters, which is great, because then, of course, and the real heart of the game is, of course, it's the giveaway in the name, is the tactics, and actually putting together what team you want to fight with. And of course, there are a number of ways you can do that. You can either do the random drawing of, you can draft. There's a number of ways. I'd probably recommend drafting. That's quite a cool way to do this. But putting together a team, if you're a bit of a min-maxer like I am, this game is super satisfying for that. There's so many interactions. There's so many ways of playing, putting together your team. Do you go for really fast movement, which of course will mean that you probably don't have quite so much firepower available to you, whether it's through the ranged or whether it's through melee fighting, or do you go for something that perhaps has got really good ranged attacks, lots of high damage, but maybe doesn't have so much range, and you've got to close with your opponent? Or do you go for a very balanced team? Or do you go for a team that's got a couple of support characters that are trying to buff up maybe 2 really attacking characters? You can see where I'm going with all of this. There is a whole variety of ways of building your teams for the competitive play mode. And what's it actually like to play? It's fast, it's quick, you're only taking 3 actions on your turn, so it passes around pretty quickly. There's not a lot of downtime effectively in the game, because if it's not your turn, well, there's every possibility that you may well be being involved in attacks and things that are going on. And having played this both solo, because there's a solo mode, and with 2 players and with 3 players, I haven't played a 4-player game yet, but there's very little downtime even in the 3-player game. So, and I can see by the way the rule set works, that's not going to be an issue for a 4-player game even. So the play is very fast, it flows really nicely, and I have to say, I have laughed a lot playing this game. Maybe it's in keeping with the kind of slightly cartoonish edge to the aesthetic. During the games, I have had some really funny situations come up that I love story in game. I love games coming to life. I love the fluff. And there have been occasions where attacks have happened that have sent some character flying from off the top of the castle, and they've ended up splashing into the water and bouncing off walls, and extra damage has been done. Or games have been hanging on a knife edge, and the tactics cards have come into play with some sort of last gasp mechanic that has just extended the game by 1 extra turn. The the hanging in the balance feel around the game, if you are evenly matched, is something that's a real pro. Now, something that might be a con for you is that it's really finely balanced. And so if you've got someone playing who is perhaps maybe tactically quite astute and very good at working things out, there is some luck in the game, absolutely. But this is clearly a game that's going to reward those players who are really skillful, those players who are able to really grok a battlefield and make good decisions on it. So if you've got a mismatch in that, that good player I can see here is going to clearly win a great deal. So take that into account. But if you've got a bunch of mates and it's very competitive amongst you, this is going to be one that you guys are going to get some real close battles out of. Now, the element of chance that is in the game really comes from the tactics cards and these dice. And these are implemented really nicely, mostly in terms of the melee and the magic. Now, magic is actually quite unpredictable. You can spend quite a lot of magic points and not necessarily get great big hits. So magic feels very risky, and that's cool. You can plow a lot of resources into it, get a great deal out of it, or maybe not so much, which feels very thematic with magic, of course. With the melee, this is where you get knockback attacks, and where a lot of the hilarities can come from, especially when, if, say, for instance, you're in a 3-player game, and everyone's all trying to fight over maybe one last control point, and there's all sorts of argy-bargy and people get knocked into everybody else. It's got a real computer game fun feel to it. Really love it. The fascinating mechanic that they've gone for with in terms of the ranged stuff is that you do have to keep track of your ammo. And when you make an attack and you roll the dice, if you roll any of the ammo signs, then you have to spend more of those ammo points to make that attack. And that's quite an interesting one. I haven't seen that kind of mechanic before, but it actually works really well because it gives you a sense of, I've got some resource management to deal with here too. Now on the battlefield, how you will do some resource management is there's little villages, so there's spaces to go to gain health back and to gain your ammo back. And that becomes a tactical thing to take into account as you're fighting. How am I going to get myself healed up? Where can I go to get my magic back or my ammo back? When it comes to controlling these areas as well that are on the board, on the battlefield, this battlefield is really nicely done. The art is great on it, and it's got a great feel to it. But everything is close enough. It feels very well balanced, just the size of it. There are portals all around that you can use to jump between, so everywhere is generally quite close to everywhere else. And so again, it feels like you can make a change quite quickly, but of course, so can your opponents. You can respond to something quite quickly, but of course, so can your opponents. I'm genuinely astonished at the brilliant design that's on display here. I mean, it really is. It's extraordinary. Now, the other game modes that we have, because I've talked mostly there about the competitive game mode, which I think is going to be the main way you'll play it. But there are other ways of playing it. There's the solo mode, where each of these little boxes has a little dungeon inside. Again, look at some unboxing videos to sort of see those. And it's a really fun little mode. I have found it quite engaging. You can even do a 2-player cooperative sort of dungeon assault, which again is great fun. I've played it with my son. He really enjoyed it, and it's a great way to squeeze out some extra play from something that's already great value. Now there are other modes. There's a sort of a battle mode, which is one I haven't played, but again, judging from the rules in the beautiful rule book, which is mostly very well written. That looks exciting. I'm looking forward to trying that out. And finally, there's also a sort of 2v2 battle setup, which is another thing that I haven't played yet, but I think will create lots and lots of opportunities for much hilarity. As I said, this is a game I've laughed a lot at. I also think this is a game that's really good as a gateway style game. Look, this aesthetic is really cool, and a lot of people are going to see this and think, hey, this looks really great, looks pretty simple. How'd you play this? How'd you get involved in this? And because it's not a scary looking game, I think that's going to draw some people in. I mean, I've busted this out I did a 3-player game with 2 people who would not regard themselves as gamers. And our 3-player game took about 3/4 of an hour, really nice sort of time point, and they loved it. They had a great time. I mean, they were wanting to buy it after we had played. They definitely wanted to play some more, and they found it quick and easy to get into. They worked out what they were doing relatively easily, and of course the challenge then is in the actual tactics. But we had a great fun game, and those 2 battled it out for second place, of course. So this is a game I think that works well as a gateway game, but if you are a bunch of players, or as a couple of you who are evenly matched with the way you like to go about some tactics, this is going to provide you with tremendous amounts of entertainment. I have very little bad to say about this game altogether. I think if you really push me, I would say that the solo mode is just fine. It's not amazing. And there's a couple of little aspects to it that are slightly counterintuitive, but they in no way kind of detract from this game as a whole. Because this game, to me, really is about that competitive battling mode. Now, when you take into account as well that there are 2 other maps to go with this in an expansion, which I have on its way to me, then the variety of play that you have available here is really quite extraordinary. And for the whole thing to be under 30 quid over here in the UK, that is really quite something. So this, to me, is an absolutely unreserved thumbs up recommendation. If you buy this, I will be very surprised if you don't have a great time with it, and probably find a way to introduce some new people into our hobby through a game like this. So there you have it. Tiny Epic Tactics, a complete hit, and a big thumbs up from 7 Gaming Network. As always, guys, keep enjoying your gaming.